Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Nicholas Playlog. In this one, we're going to be talking about Bo Bichette. He just had his introductory press conferences with the New York Mets, and since then, we've seen a couple articles pop up online and a discourse start to form about why he actually made that decision in the first place. Was it the front office? Was there some type of barrier between the two of them? We're going to get into that, give our overall thoughts about this, and then just, talk about this discourse, because some people are claiming that it's all the management's fault. It's a little weird, man. But so just disclaimer early on that it is a little wild.
We'll get into discussions. It is important to talk about because, again, it is weird how the Blue Jays didn't have any sort of, aggression towards getting Bo Bichette back in Toronto during this whole free agency, at least to our knowledge. And then you have these opinions coming out that are kind of explaining why that might be. So let's first dive right into it. First of all, just want to give this a little shout out. Shout out to the Blue Jays, for throwing this video out here. Bo Bichette, it's a beautiful video. I really encourage you to go watch it. Bo Bichette, overall, I want to say this as well. He does love the fans. He does love the fans. It has nothing to do with the city of Toronto or the fan base. He came out with his own personalized message yesterday. It was nice. It really showed that he did have a love for the city and love for the fans as we watched him grow up. So I just wanted to throw that out there that yes, he does love us. The problem does lie, however, in some of these other articles, and we got to give a shout out to these guys, Rob Longley, and we also got one by Rosie from the Toronto Star.
Which is wild, by the way.
Which is wild.
I've seen people talking about it on Twitter because it is actually kind of crazy, but we'll save that for the end. Let's talk about what Whit Merrifield had to say. Shout out to the 6 Inning Stretch podcast, by the way, guys. If you haven't already, go check them out. Incredible work with Whit Merrifield and Lindsay Dunn. But Whit came out and was talking to Lindsay about Bo Bichette and about this entire situation. And for him, apparently this was no surprise because he had obviously he was on the team. He had a little insider info here that there was a little bit of a rift going on between Bo and between the management. He says, I wasn't surprised that he didn't go back to Toronto. It's not that they ended on bad terms, but I just think it was probably best for both parties that Bichette ended up elsewhere. And somewhere in I believe it's right there. There's some stuff that went on with Bo and the Jays as far as the front office and the coaching staff that I think maybe tainted that relationship a little bit. Now, this is pure speculation from me. I don't know anything. I'm not an insider here, but I think that is probably something to that because it was a little weird that they weren't pursuing him more heavily. And it did feel like they were just okay to let him walk. And okay, you can say what you will about the defense. And maybe they didn't feel like he was the right fit for the team. But at the end of the day, he is still a really talented player. And it was a little strange that they weren't more involved in the Bo Bichette conversation.
Yeah, and I really do want to point out a couple seasons where things got really weird. And we can actually go back and we can really see that, things did get weird during those years. It was 2023 and 2024, which Whit Merrifield was part of that 2023 team. And if you remember correctly, Whit Merrifield has spoken about this. He was not too happy about the idea of that front office getting involved into the management's decision during Game 2 when they pulled Jose Barrios really early. Rob Longley mentions that in here. That's from his perspective right there. But then you also have 2024, which was a overall weird year for the team because they were only a 74-win ball team and they didn't really go out to do much to help the team, offensively, pitching wise. And then you have this really weird year from Bo Bichette's perspective where it wasn't very good when he was on the field. Then he gets hurt. And then there was a lot of discourse between him and the management and they're just him not wanting to play here. And there was all this weird stuff kind of getting leaked out. They tried to do a lot of PR stuff to cover it up, as we remember. He really spoke to the media. I want to be here. I want to be a Blue Jay. He said all those things. But again, just a weird feeling during those years as we were going through some uncomfortable times.
And again, pure speculation, but I remember in 2024, whenever they flashed over to him on the bench, didn't look like a happy guy. He did.
In those
right?
Because I know Bo happy and Bo sad, knowing him for 7 years. It's a slight difference, but you could tell.
Oh, I think it was a pretty massive difference between 2020. How we looked in 2024 compared to 2025 was a wild, a world of difference. So yeah, I don't think it takes a genius to recognize that at the very least in that season specifically, he wasn't too happy. I think what is interesting to know is that this was something that was carrying over for a few years, or apparently that's what Whit Merrifield has to say. Now, should we be angry about this? Should we be upset that ultimately the management didn't go after him as heavily as maybe they should have, and ultimately there was a rift? Well, if you ask Rosie, from where's she from again? The Toronto Star. The Toronto Star. If you ask Rosie DiMano from the Toronto Star, she would say yes, you should be very angry. This article, if you haven't already, maybe go give it a read or don't, because it is fucking nuts.
It's wild, man. Again, like, she's very opinionated. Everyone has their own opinion, and you are entitled to it. But yeah, like, go give it a read. I had quite a laugh. There's a lot of things in there. But yes, she goes on to say that, like, he had some occasions where he disclosed deep anger towards the organization and bitter disappointment. So again, if you want to be angry about something, if you want to blame anything, like the one thing that everything's pointing to is towards the front office right now, for getting involved in the Jose Barrios things, for not treating him like a star that he is. Because she also goes on to say that she thinks that he came to somewhat resent being the lesser of the Golden Boy to Cavaro's generational superstar franchise bulwark, whatever, right? Like she's probably assuming that could be a thing. Maybe not. We'll see. But, if you want to, I do believe where I'll take this out of this, where, yes, I think they should have gotten a deal done much earlier, like they done with Guerrero. They kind of pushed Guerrero even a little bit too close to free agency. And I do believe when you got a guy like Bo Bichette, as young as he is, as talented as he is, the chance to lead the AL in hits any given year, you should be looking to lock that guy up and treat him like a cornerstone. And for whatever reason, they didn't, whether it be from Bo's side or from their side or some disagreements, whatever that is. That's what you can really point your finger at, is there was something wrong there in that relationship, and that's why a deal never got done.
Maybe, but I would also argue that $42 million is a lot of money. Now, she argues here that, and she says, can't have been about the money. Toronto's been spending like a drunken sailor this winter. Rogers is rolling in dough. They could have easily matched that 126 3-year deal had they wanted to. They didn't want to, because the Jays masterminds, eternally carpetbaggers from Cleveland, are always the smartest guys in the room. Just ask them. This is what she said. This is word for word.
We know her opinion about Ross and Mark, and now she doesn't really like him. But
for me personally, I would like to speak on this because I haven't yet. I don't think, they could have done that. They could have given him $42 million a year, but ultimately, I don't know if Bo Bichette is worth that money.
Right, but also I don't think that they wanted to even entertain it. That's where I'm kind of going, is because they just didn't have a good working relationship. Yeah, they could have beaten it, or they could have financially beaten it. They may have not wanted to either, right? Because he's not worth the money, but they didn't want to have him back on the team because of some sort of relationship issues. That's what I'm kind of looking at right now.
Would you say that, are you upset at the management then for that? Because I don't think I'm personally upset about this situation. I just think that it is what it is. Look, and ultimately, it did feel time for both sides to move on. Again, I would like to have Bo Bichette here long term for sure, but I look at all the good things that the management have done recently, and I think that the pros certainly outweigh the cons.
Yeah, for me, there's disagreements. We know nothing, and to get upset about not knowing nothing is just kind of silly in my opinion. We don't know what the problem exactly was, and miscommunications happen in the workplace all the time. Again, this is a workplace thing. He goes here every single day, almost, it feels like, through the entire year. He works with these guys, talks to them, and if there's a disagreement, you don't want to go back to a workplace where you're having disagreements with your boss or your management. You want to find a new place to work, and that's what it was. And it could be a personal thing, it could be a business thing, whatever it might be. They had a disagreement, and for me as a fan to get upset about someone's disagreement in a workplace that I'm not even involved in, I can't really say that I can get upset about that because it's not involving me. So with that being said, yeah, I'm not upset about how it went down. It's unfortunate how it went down. I'm more upset that I'm going to miss Bo Bichette because he meant so much to the city and what this team is.
Yes, I suppose that when I read this article here by Rosie, this is very clearly a hit piece on Ross and Mark. And whilst, again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, I don't think that ultimately we need to be, hating on them for this offseason or the Bo Bichette situation. There were opinions had by both people, Bo and, Ross and Mark. And ultimately, it's always going to be a two-way street. Would I like it if he was still here? Of course I would, but I still look at the money aspect of all of this and think to myself, yeah, okay, maybe they could have done anything. They could have given Shohei Ohtani $1 billion if they really wanted to, but they didn't. And I'm not going to get overtly upset about that. I think that this was time for him to move on. And even if there was a little bit of a rift, that shit just happens, man.
Yeah, that's life, man.
That is just what goes down. And I do look at this management, and I think that they...
All right. Before we dive in, let me just say this. Baseball breakups hurt worse than real breakups because at least your ex doesn't sign with the New York Mets the very next day. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Blue Jays Report, where the takes are hot, the debates are louder than the Rogers Center roof, and we never pretend everything's fine when it clearly isn't. Today, we're talking about the Bo Bichette situation, and trust me, this story has more layers than a triple-decker clubhouse sandwich. Bo Bichette has officially been introduced as a New York Met, and the ink wasn't even dry on that jersey before the internet exploded. Articles popped up, timelines caught fire, and suddenly everyone became an expert on what really went wrong in Toronto. Was it management? Was it communication? Was it ego, money, vibes, or just plain baseball politics? Buckle up because this conversation gets messy fast. First things first, let's clear one thing up before the hot takes go completely feral. Bo loves Toronto. He loves the fans. He said it himself in his own words with a message that felt genuine, emotional, and honestly a little painful to watch. This was never about the city. This was never about the fans. This was about something deeper, something behind closed doors that never quite healed. And that's where things start to get interesting, because when former teammates start talking, ears perk up. Whit Merrifield, speaking on a podcast, casually dropped what felt like a baseball truth bomb. He said Bo leaving didn't surprise him, not because things ended badly, but because sometimes relationships just wear down. Sometimes it's better for both sides to walk away, even if nobody ever slams a door. Now, let me be clear. This is speculation. No secret sources, no dramatic leaks. But let's be honest. It always felt a little strange how quiet the Blue Jays were during this free agency process. No aggressive push, no all-in energy. For a player of Bo Bichette's caliber, that silence spoke volumes. If you rewind the tape to 2023 and 2024, you can almost see the tension forming. Questionable front office decisions, odd in-game management, and a team that never quite felt aligned. 2024 especially was just weird. A losing season, little offensive support, and a version of Bo Bichette that didn't look like himself. Injuries, frustration, awkward media moments, and a lot of carefully crafted PR trying to smooth things over. And look, you don't need a PhD in body language to notice when someone isn't happy. Watching Bo on the bench in 2024 felt different. This wasn't the fiery kid we saw earlier in his career. This was someone carrying weight, mentally and emotionally. That kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. Then came the articles. Some of them were calm, some of them were nuclear. One in particular painted this as a full-blown organizational failure, accusing the front office of alienating their star, mishandling egos, and letting resentment fester. According to that narrative, Bo wasn't just disappointed, he was deeply angry. Now, here's where things split. Could the Jays have paid him? Absolutely. They're spending money like it's monopoly cash. But should they have? That's the real debate. $40+ million a year is superstar territory. And while Bo is incredibly talented, the question isn't just talent, it's trust. And once trust cracks in a workplace, even a baseball one, it's almost impossible to repair. From my perspective, this feels less like betrayal and more like a mutual exhaustion. Sometimes you don't leave because you hate the job. You leave because you can't see yourself thriving there anymore. And honestly, that's life. Do I wish Bo Bichette was still a Blue Jay? Of course. Am I furious at management? Not really. I'm sad. I'm reflective, and I'm hoping lessons were learned, because only Bo, Ross, and Mark truly know what went wrong, and that knowledge matters for the next generation of stars. The chapter is closed. Bo's in New York, the Jays are moving forward. Now, the real question is whether this team can write a new story on the field. Let me know what you think. Are you angry? Are you at peace? Or are you just staring at highlights wondering how it all slipped away? Like, subscribe, and stick with the Blue Jays Report. Baseball drama never sleeps, and neither do we.